Hello, in this activity, you will resize an image quickly and seamlessly. I'll start with the tutorial and then it'll be your turn. We'll discuss shrinking images at the beginning and we'll finish with enlarging some photos. First, open up any image, or you can use this one that's attached to this lecture. It's a great looking picture, but it's also way too big for my taste. Here's what we're going to do to resize it. First, I'll unlock my layer by double-clicking it. In this new window that shows up, you can enter any name, but I like to keep everything as is. Great, now we can start resizing it. Here's the most popular technique. Use Ctrl-T to enter free transform mode. Now you'll notice the image has a stroke of sorts, as well as some handles. If you don't see them, please use Ctrl-0 to fit the image to the canvas to zoom away so you can see the photo's edges. If I go and drag from the top left corner, you can see how the image immediately changes. Bear with me with the following. If you have Photoshop CC 2019 or a newer version, your aspect ratio is going to be maintained automatically. This means you can resize quickly without worrying you'll distort the image, i.e. making it too tall or too wide. As you can see, even if I try to mess up, the program doesn't allow me to destroy the image. But let me change to any other previous Photoshop version. It doesn't matter if it's a recent one like CC 2018 or an old version like CS6. Here I'll use the same photo, the same hotkey Ctrl-T, but notice the outcome. The image gets distorted, and that's because in all versions before Photoshop CC 2019, you had to hold Shift to protect the image's proportions. As you can see, now that I'm holding Shift, things are spot on. The photo is no longer distorted and I can shrink it down with the help of that hotkey. So please be aware that your Photoshop version is very important in this case, and let me show you why. Going back to CC 2019, I'll resize it a bit more just so you can see the image is being properly modified. No hotkeys used at the moment, right? But now if I hold Shift, look what happens. I gain complete freedom and I can modify the layer in any shape or form. Chances are you won't want to work like that, but no, that's an option. To sum it up, if you're using CC 2019, don't use Shift unless you want to distort the image. If you're using an older version, you have to use Shift to maintain its aspect ratio. Alright, let's keep going. Sometimes you'll want to eyeball it, but maybe you want to be precise. Well, we have a couple of options. First, focus on the options bar. In this region, you can see a W and an H. Those stand for width and height, and by default, these values are shown in percentages. If you want to manually type something in, make sure you first click on this chain icon. In Photoshop CC 2019, this is enabled by default, so you don't have to do anything. Once that's done, I can write something like 50% and the height will change as well. But say you don't know what percentage you're looking for. Instead, you need its width to be 1000 pixels. No problem. Simply right-click in this box and change percent to pixels. Now you can do the same for the other box. Let's take it down to 1000 pixels. I recommend you double-click and replace the existing value with your own. Trying to type it in manually is a bit tricky. Press Enter or click on this check mark from the options bar to continue with your edits. In case you don't want to use Ctrl-T, you can open your Properties panel. If you're not sure which one it is, go to Window, Properties. From it, you gain access to the same width and height boxes, but without entering free transform mode. So I'll drop the size down to 800, and once I press Tab or Enter, the new size is going to come in. Good stuff. As a side note, X and Y stand for the image's position on the horizontal and vertical axis, starting from the top left. So if you replace the current X value with 0 pixels, the image will touch the left edge of our canvas. Increase that to 100 pixels and it will move 100 pixels to the right. Same thing applies for the vertical axis. 0 makes it touch the top edge of our work area. And if I replace that with 200, it will move down. Good stuff. Say you want to export your work so you can share it with your friends. Trouble is, if you save it with Alt-Control-Shift-W, you can see all this excess space all around your photo. That's not good. So how can you easily get rid of it? Well, I'm going to show you the easiest and fastest way to do that. Let's hit Cancel. We'll go to Image, Trim. From this new window, I'll select Transparent Pixels. Once I hit OK, you'll now see all that extra space has gone away. Fantastic! Let me show you another way of shrinking an image. Press F12 to revert back to its original state. If that hotkey doesn't work, go to the top menu and click on File. From here, choose Revert. If you're on a Mac, the tab is called Photoshop. OK, now without doing anything else, we'll use Ctrl-Alt-I. This will bring up the image size dialog. Here you can see its current dimensions, 3000 by 2000 pixels. Here it's a repeat of what we just talked about. We can put in 50% and this will instantly resize the image to 1500 by 1000. Or we can switch these values to pixels. By default, the chain icon is already pressed. Once you hit OK, you're good to go. Let's talk about enlarging an image, or what's referred to as upsampling. In general, you don't want to do that. It's highly discouraged, even though Photoshop's engine has advanced in recent years. If you want a high-quality image, your best bet is to recapture that photo with a better camera. Since that's usually not a reasonable option, I'll show you the best way to do it even though you won't get crystal clear results. First, let me open my image. I'll use Ctrl-Alt-I, but if you don't want to use that hotkey, you can go to Image Size. Here you can see this has been taken down to 750 by 500 pixels, so it's not tiny, but it's also not high quality. That's my first piece of advice. Try and enlarge images that are at least medium in size. If you're planning on blowing up something that's 400 by 300 pixels, you're not going to have a good result. Here I'll crank it up to 300% so I can explain what's going on. I'll also enlarge this window so you can see more of this preview. 300% is an exaggerated value. I wouldn't recommend you go this high because this command means that for each existing pixel, Photoshop has to create 3 additional ones. Now let's play around with these options, though my advice is to leave it set at automatic. Photoshop usually does a good job by itself. In case your preview shows you something isn't right, you can go through these other options. You'll see no difference between automatic and preserve details, because that's the new default value that Photoshop uses for enlarging images. If we switch to bicubic smoother, the image becomes blurry. I don't think this is a viable option. The only real change you may want to make in your day-to-day work is this. Switch to preserve details, and you can use this reduce noise slider to tone down all the harshness in the sky. If I bring it all the way up to 100%, you can see the difference. That's the easiest way of enlarging an image. You can also use Ctrl-T, and I'll show you how that's done later in this course, but this is simple and effective. And that wraps up our lecture. Now it's your turn to test out these methods with a fresh new image of your own. Try out these steps we just practiced on your own and see which one you like best. Is it the free transform method, or do you prefer the image size command of Ctrl-Alt-I? Let me know in the comments section. I'll see you soon.